Hello and good morning everybody, and welcome to Transversal's webinar, Knowledge Redefined, the Cognitive Platform of the Future. Today we have special guest Jamie Dormandy from RNIB, who is the Head of Customer Service and Support. My name is Sharon King-Livesey. I'm Head of Marketing here at Transversal. I would like to invite you all to participate in this morning's broadcast. To ask a question, pretty simple, just please type it into the question box and press submit. We'll be answering as many of your questions as possible towards the end of the webinar. So I am delighted to welcome Jamie today from RNIB. Jamie leads RNIB's customer service teams. His background is in customer experience, and he previously headed up the customer support function for Sainsbury's Online and managing transformation programs across retail and automotive sectors. Jamie, in June, spoke at Transversal's Customer Summit. We had some fantastic feedback from the delegation on how Jamie brought the RNIB story to life. Some of you may already have read the case study on our website, but Jamie today will be going into a bit more detail on the successes that he's seeing through knowledge. So, Jamie, I would like to turn the webinar over to you straight away, just to tell everybody about the great successes RNIB are seeing. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, and thanks, Sharon. It's a pleasure to share some of what we've been doing with everyone here today. Let me just share my screen. So hello everyone, I'm Jamie Dormandy, Head of Customer Support and Service and Support at RNIB, and our partnership with Transversal goes back the best part of 4 years. The first thing that we implemented was an intelligent knowledge tool to our website to drive self-service and improve the customer journey online, which we're really happy with, really pleased with. But it's two enhancements that we've made over the last 12 months that I'd really like to focus on this morning that have helped us to maximise that initial investment and drive significant improvements to our customer journeys across channels, and significant improvement as well to our customer satisfaction scores. In a nutshell, they've increased usability of our site by providing knowledge and context to our online customers, and also use the power of that knowledge to equip our internal audience, staff and volunteers, with an easy-to-use knowledge base, which I'll talk about. But first of all, RNIB, we exist to make every day better for people living with sight loss, and do that through 4 organisational priorities. To start with, being there. So it's our objective to be there from the point of diagnosis and beyond for people with sight loss. Our sight loss advisors are based in eye clinics across the UK and also over the phone. Secondly, independence. So we provide advice and support and specialist products that enable people to live independently. We host the UK's largest accessible library of over 23,000 titles, and over 200 magazines and newspapers that people can access through braille or audio formats. Thirdly, inclusion. So we campaign politically for social inclusion of blind and partially sighted people in every way, and increasingly we consult in the technology sphere, working with companies such as Microsoft, Google and Amazon, because what we've really seen is over the last 15-20 years, technology is absolutely a key enabler for blind and partially sighted people to participate. And finally, prevention. So it was actually our customers, blind and partially sighted people, who told us that they wanted to make prevention one of our key priorities to help prevent avoidable sight loss, as well as supporting people affected by it. A bit of context about our customers. So there are around 350,000 people in the UK registered as sight impaired or severely sight impaired, and they're part of a large group of around 2 million people who live with an eye condition that means significant loss of sight. And our focus has been over the last couple of years to provide a consistently excellent quality of service to all of those customers, however they use our services, acknowledging that for most customers, the journey will involve a blend of face-to-face, voice, and online channels. And so that's where Transversal have really come in. Over the last 12 months, it's been adapting our FAQ tool, our knowledge base online, in context has made a significant difference. One thing that we're frequently told by our customers is that when they receive a diagnosis in particular, and at other points in the journey, there are thousands of questions they want answers to, either about the eye condition itself, or independent living, remaining in employment, eligibility for benefits. There's a plethora of things that they may want to use RNIB for. And typically, if we go back in time, the main way we did that was through paper booklets. There's an example on the screen there of our Understanding Glaucoma, which you can still find in most eye clinics around the country. It is really useful. It's very comprehensive in terms of everything you might want to know about that condition and its effect on one's sight. However, translated to an online experience, divulging all of that information on a web page was leading to some poor performance, really, in terms of the online customer journey. What we were seeing was extremely high bounce rates of up to 86%, perhaps because upon reading that volume of information, many people are scared off. So in general, we perform very well on Google. If you Google glaucoma after the NHS and Wikipedia, you'll find RNIB's pages. But what we are seeing, like I say, with a bounce rate of 86%, is that customers were typically accessing that information and then just going elsewhere. So the way we worked with Transversal was to make the online experience much more intuitive and much more human. And we integrated our knowledge base, our FAQs, and on this particular page you can see related FAQs at the bottom right of the screen, so that when customers search or browse to a particular topic, they can not just choose from the content we have on our website, but also dip into the knowledge that's relevant for them at any given moment in time. And in terms of results, that change went live in April, and immediately within the first 2 months, we saw a reduction of 17%, of the bounce rate that I mentioned was 86%. And since then, we've been tweaking the questions that we insert at different points in the journey to get that down even further. All of that is easy for our digital team who manage the back end. Once it was implemented, there's no coding involved to manage those tweaks and changes. This is an example of the back end that you can see on the screen now. So the joy of this enhancement is that we can now be responsive. It's really simple to change the FAQs that we insert at different points in the customer journey on our website. And we were able to turn this around with Transversal in 5 weeks. It allows us to curate the customer journey in a way that we weren't able to before, and insert useful information at specific and timely moments. And that's the first of the enhancements I wanted to share today. The second is that, as well as an optimized online experience for self-service, we wanted to improve the experience through our voice channel, through our helpline. And the challenge that we were facing, as I mentioned earlier, is there are literally thousands of things that people may want to know at different points in their journey. different emotional states that they're in, and a real vast range of knowledge that, if delivered sensitively and communicated well, can be life-changing. However, that knowledge was proving very difficult to maintain, keep up to date, and keep fresh on the tip of the tongues of our helpline team, leading to customers being put on hold, or at times being given inconsistent information from different people, and a variance in quality of experience. So knowledge, rather than the facilitator, was a barrier to the great experience that we wanted to provide. It was proving expensive to retain, walking out the door when somebody left the organisation. And there was a cultural element to that, I think, that people prided themselves on how much they knew, because knowledge was an expensive asset in the organisation. And the shift that we really wanted to make was to make it about how well you contribute to the shared knowledge within the organisation, rather than just being an expert yourself. The picture on the screen there shows a binder of training notes and printed out emails from briefings that was the predominant way of sharing and maintaining knowledge before we implemented the transversal solution internally. So we went from that to this, which is What's What, our internal knowledge base that we launched with our helpline in January. It allows our staff and volunteers to ask any question and receive an answer, predominantly used through the search bar that you can see at the top there. There are a couple of, I guess, key things in the implementation that we did that I think were helpful and we learned quickly from, which I'll touch on in a minute. But within the 9 months that it's been live, we've already seen some significant gains operationally and to our customer satisfaction. So it's helped us to reduce our average handling time by close to 20%, and that's without targeting it as a specific measure for our advisors. They're aware of their average handling time, but the most important measure of their own success in their appraisals is the quality of what they offer, rather than the time they take on each call. So we're really pleased in that, because essentially that means that we can support more customers and get more out of our operation. The other thing that's enabled us to do more with less, essentially, is that we've reduced the rate of transfers to our second tier teams, which was at 29% of all calls. That's now at 15%, enabling our second tier teams to focus on the customers that need the more expert support the most. And we run our customer satisfaction survey every 6 months. So we've only had one new wave since this went live, but we've seen some significant improvements. One of the questions we ask customers in that survey is, how knowledgeable did the staff member that you spoke to appear? And that increased from 75% of customers scoring us 9 or 10 out of 10 to 81%, which I'm pleased with within the first 6 months of launching this. But I think we've got even further to go there, given the increasing user adoption and contribution to What's What, which, as I mentioned briefly earlier, was absolutely key to this landing. We did have a small project team that gathered stakeholders from different parts of the organisation and champions within our helpline teams that helped to land it. But from the get-go, we acknowledged that the project team wasn't going to be the real driver of success, that they were helpful. Of course, couldn't have done it without them, but for sustainability of the solution, we needed ownership across our base of users. So one of the things we did was allow people to vote for the name. I was pleased to hear that we didn't get a kind of Boaty McBoatface or anything like that. We got a fairly sensible name, What's What, and people seemed pretty happy with that. But a number of other activities helped it to really land, not just get people using it. So rather than user adoption, perhaps we should talk about contributor adoption. You'll see on the screen there's a pink button in the top left that says suggest content. And really that's what we wanted to get people hitting. We were confident that when we went live, we had some really good and useful knowledge articles that covered all of the major topics people call us about. But a real measure of success was how many suggestions we would get, knowing that rather than the project team or the small team who now manage the content being expected to be experts in everything, acknowledge that actually the knowledge is out there and it always will be. And we're dependent on our helpline staff, our volunteers, our members of our second and third tier support teams to contribute to this knowledge and ensure that the customer journey is optimized. So that's been a bit about our journey over the last year with Transversal. I hope that's been useful and insightful for others on the webinar. Sharon, back over to you. I think we might have some questions.
Thanks, Jamie. There's some really powerful statistics in that presentation, really insightful. Thank you. Yes, we have had one or two questions in. We're going to answer those at the end. So one of the questions is about accessibility. We do have a video that everyone can watch once the webinar has been published on our website. The link to that video is up on that slide right now. But I just thought, before we go to the main questions at the end, can we talk a little bit about the accessibility piece now?
Yes, of course, really happy to do that. Accessibility and usability were key for RNIB from the start of our partnership with Transversal, and we were really pleased as a tech company how Transversal approached this. I guess the product was already in a really good state. For our internal and external users, it was really important that it can be accessed with magnification software, whether that's as simple as the built-in accessibility on an iPad or iPhone, or some of the more bespoke programs that are used by blind and partially sighted people. So its compatibility with those things was already something that was easy for us to work with. There are a couple of small tweaks that, upon engaging with our user group and accessibility experts, Transversal made to the tool, which I'm pleased to say are kind of made universally. So there are other clients benefit from those. It's not just blind and partially sighted people working for us that will benefit from that, but anyone using the Transversal platform, which was great. But in terms of our own implementation, we have people with different levels of sight using the internal tool. The video that Sharon mentioned is one of my team leaders, Paul Porter, who leads our Technology for Life team. They offer advice and support with people getting to grips with accessible technology and overcoming their sight impairment, so that technology can be an enabler. And Paul uses What's What purely through audio. So he uses that either through his desktop or through his iPhone, purely through the hand controls and audio function that Ask Siri provides. And so I guess it's a combination of those tweaks that were made and the approach that Transversal took in partnering with us on that, but also despite the sophisticated and natural language search engine, the user experience is just very simple and adheres to the web accessibility guidelines that all websites should. But the simplicity of the experience, I think, is a real benefit, because that meant that there really wasn't a huge amount to do to make sure it was accessible to our user group.
That's brilliant, and that video is a really good demonstration of that accessibility, really good. So I encourage everybody to have a look at that after the webinar. So Jamie, this is probably a very long answer, but what's the future for RNIB? What's next for you?
Yeah, how long have you got? But yeah, I guess a couple of things that a couple of things that we'd like to move into. We've I guess iterated once from our original external portal, making knowledge contextual and providing it to an internal audience. That's now an asset that we hold, knowledge in an accessible and usable format. We'd like to partner with other organisations in the sector to make that available to them, and have started to develop the right discussions and partnerships for that. So that's key for us. The second way really is harnessing it more on an internal basis. I mentioned that we've been really pleased with user adoption and contribution, but I think that we've still got a way to go in making sure everyone uses it and contributes to it to make it work for us in the best way possible.
That's brilliant, brilliant. Thanks, Jamie. Really interesting presentation. Thank you. We're just about out of time now, so to those of you who have asked a question and not had it answered, don't worry, we'll respond to you via email shortly. I hope everybody found the webinar helpful. If there are any questions at all that you have, please don't hesitate to send them in. But as of this morning, this concludes our webinar. Thank you, everybody.